Hello, my name is Robert Griffith. I'm one of the founding members of the 3D Printing Club, and I'm about to open up my first 3D printer kit. I know that sounds strange since I've been involved in 3D printing for so long, but I've never built a kit. And not exactly sure what to expect here. We ordered the Createbot i3, and it's come from China, and I'm gonna open it up here and see what I have in store for myself here. Seems to be well packaged. So to start with, we have a nice foam cover and a list of parts, a lot of parts. I can see some heat sink, there's a USB drive, cords, motors, relays, wires, etc. And in the large box, looks like this may be the power, no? Looks like some motherboard. Alright. And if I get into the underneath part here, let me get this over here out of the way. Looks like we have a spool of some filament, some binder clips, probably to hold the glass down, USB cables, some parts for the build, and if I can get that to lift, that looks pretty good. Let's see what's under here now. Get under that layer of stuff. It's very well packaged. We have the rails to build it. Alright, so it's standard type rails. So it looks to me like it's going to be an interesting build and probably fun, but I'm a little nervous. It's been a while since I've done any electronics builds. The last one I worked on, well, the first one I worked on was a Hero 2000 robot way back in, boy, 1988 or 89. But my skills are rusty, so it's going to be exciting. Okay, so I'm getting ready to start the build on this project, and I apologize for the weird decor. I teach high school, and this is the quietest place I could find, which should give you an idea of home life. Anyway, the USB drive that I mentioned that came with it is a place to put your little SD card. So if you already have an SD card, on your SD card reader on your computer, you can keep this to the side. Now what this SD card has is video tutorials on how to put this together. Whoops, sorry. And so it pops open, it has videos that will play, and it just jumps right into showing you the printer and then showing you a piece which looks like this, and then it shows a couple screws going in, etc. So what I'm going to try to do is follow along. It's not saying anything. There's no voice to it. It's just showing you a picture, and it's going through pretty quickly. So if you look at these things, there are just packets and packets and packets of washers and screws and things like that. So in order to make this watchable, what I may have to do is edit clips between me looking for parts, and then I'll put it together. All right. So I just don't want you to think that I'm cutting things out to make it look easier to build or whatnot. The body pieces are like this. They all seem to be covered in a little clear layer of this peel-off plastic protector. So, we'll take that off and make it nice and shiny. As you can see, it's got a really, nice shine to it now versus the dollar side. And the first piece it begins with is this one. And so I will find the screws for that and the spacers, and we'll get putting them together. Okay, so as I begin the process of figuring out what pieces I'm going to need, I know there's this piece because there's only one. Then it tells me to move on to the spacers. And the problem is they have one pack of spacers that says plastic spacers 5 by 7 by 8. There's 12 of them, and that goes along with the list. But then I have 3 packs of spacers that are not labeled. So I need to go 5 by 7 by 8 spacers. And it says, no, I need 5 by 7 by 5. So the 5 by 7 by 5s are the ones with 14 pieces in the pack. So I'll use this pack. And then I'll begin to put this together. And basically it's just a motor, a couple screws holding the motor to the piece. Anyway, you'll see when we're ready. And there's lots and lots and lots of little parts. So if I turn this to so you can see the parts, you'll see this is all packets. So it'll be a little while. One thing I do like is that it came with the little Allen wrenches, and it came with these little wrenches here that are hooked together. So I'm going to have a toolkit here, obviously, but it's nice to see that they thought enough to put this through. This is one of those tutorial videos, however, that you're going to have to really kind of watch and go through. Like, for example, the text on the screen of this step says, in addition to the machine in the assembly of T-type nut need to tighten. So it's going to take a little bit, but it looks to me like quality pieces. So I hope it turns out. So this is the video tutorial I was talking about, and I paused it here because I'm really at the very beginning. Basically, they've put a couple screws in, and they're getting ready to put a couple screws into the motor. And you'll see that I need 2 M310 screws. So if I kind of scroll back here and we look at the pieces, I've got the T-nuts ready, I've got the spacer, I've got the motor and the piece, and got all of these parts ready here. And as I move over here to my external area, I have all of my screws, and I keep them in order of size lined up so that I can tell where everything is, and I can see what M number it is I need. So you remember I needed an M310, and I go from M38 to M312, 14, 25, and then you get into M410, M420, M425, M435, and then up here to M530. So I go to my list to verify, and I check off all the screws that I have, and I realize that just starting out, I'm already missing, and actually I'm not sure what these other ones are either. I'm going to have to find those. And so you see the number of pieces over here, so I'm missing 1 M36, the M330s that I need, I'm missing 2, and I'm missing 11 M310s, and I don't even know if I have these other pieces. It'll kind of depend on what these things are called. So, but I do know that I have no more screws here. I have springs, I have boards, I've got various spacers. I keep those separate as well. And if I go back into my box, mostly it's just build pieces. I've gone through the box several times now, and there's no screws in there. Looking at my other pieces. So unfortunately, I'm either going to have to stop the build or put the pieces together that I have the parts for and hope I can get it together later. Okay, so for this piece, I'm going to use my 2 M420s, and no, I can't even open the bag. Oh, brother, let me just pop them out. And these will go through the piece here, out like this, And then there is a couple spacers that fit on here. And then a couple of these T-nuts. All right. So that's 1 and 2. Okay. And that piece is ready. Now, the next piece, unfortunately, is where we're missing the screws. And basically, the idea there is that we're going to attach this to the motor. But I'm supposed to use 2 screws here, the M310s, which didn't seem to come with the printer. So I'll leave that to the side and then move on to the next step. And the next piece is this little gold button here. Not button, but and it will go on here and whoops, trying to find where the slot is here. There we go. And then we get to the point where we're supposed to put in 2 M330 screws. Now, we don't have these screws, so again, we're going to have to move on to the next step. And I believe maybe we'll be able to continue and just come back and put these screws in later, I hope. All right, so the next piece, I'm sorry about the weird angle and the big hands as they approach the camera, but I'm going to start with this piece here, and I'm going to pull off the protective coverings, and I'm going to put these screws through here, which we will use for something else. All right, and then I'm going to put these T-nuts on here. I'm assuming the instructions don't say what the piece is, but it was a little green square, a little green cube, so I'm just going to pretend like it's this T-nut since it fits so perfectly. Not sure what it does yet or why it's on there, but you know, one step at a time. It's getting there. Okay, so as we get to that next step, there's always going to be a difficult one, you know. I think these T-nuts are like this so that you can hand tighten maybe. And the next piece is to take this thing and look at it like that and put this through, and then we'll attach the motor using these 4 little screws here, and just get those a little bit hand tightened in there. Okay, these motors seem to be high quality. They thread really well, and so it kind of looks like that at this point. I just need to kind of get them straightened up, and I'm not sure how tight to make those. All right, so that's a nice piece right there. The barrel piece I've got on there. This tube, I'm not quite sure what that is. Now, it's interesting. I've got the barrel here, and it fits really well over this. And it took me a while to find these little screws that it indicates that you need here for M3x3 screws, because they're already in the piece. So I spent a little while looking for them like an idiot. But I'm not quite sure what this cable is. I'm not sure if it's something I don't have or if it's just my inexperience with building 3D printers, but I don't have anything that really resembles that. Another dilemma is those are supposedly called POMs. There's nothing on the paper that says POMs. But I have these, so, and then if I push play, otherwise the wheels would get stuck, So they're wheels. I'm assuming that that's what this part is. Okay, in this step of the assembly, we're going to be building these little pieces here to attach to this larger board here. So I'm going to go ahead and peel off the protective material. And again, it gets a high glossy look. Alright, and let me see here. I'm trying to remember. I guess it doesn't matter. It looks like it's pretty much symmetrical. But the idea is that these are going to go through these little screw holes here and have some sort of a lock washer on them. I'm not sure I've got the right lock washer because it doesn't identify it. It just says to put a lock washer on here. I'm not a lock washer, nut, a locking nut. So anyway, it'll go something like that, and it'll have wheels here, and the wheels should be able to still spin. It said not to over tighten, but I'm not quite sure. So we'll see. But the whole thing is you take one of these little wheels and put a screw through it, and then the plastic spacer, pop it through the hole. He said, as if it was easy. And then put the nut on here. And I'm going to look for other nuts just to make sure. I don't want to put the wrong nuts on here and end up being short on parts. Alright, so put those all together. Drop it through the hole. Alright, so put this through here. And this through here. And so on the back side now we should have the nuts, and I'll attach these on this side. Alright, and there you have that piece. Alright, we're getting there. Just want to do a quick, the way I'm going to tighten this. I'm holding a hex wrench inside the pulley here, and I'm using the provided wrench and going to try to tighten this and still keep it on camera. Don't want to scratch up my glossy thing since I already took off the, whoops, since I already took off the protective cover. I'm sorry. This is not my day job. Alright, and I don't want to tighten it too tight because this still needs to be able to spin over here. Alright, and same with this one. Stick that thing in there, give me something to hold on to. Trying to hand tighten it as much as possible, and get your wrench and start tightening. Alright, and I have just a few more of these to do, and I will be right back for the next step. Okay, so this is going to be more of the same, except we're going to be having these pulleys. Let me actually start putting these in so we get them moving ahead of time here. Put the pulleys through, and the screws through the pulleys. Then we got the plastic washer on there. Alright. And then one last one here. And then we're going to take this plate, and there's 4 holes on this thing that are a little larger. So we're going to put it through this way. And okay, so I kind of fast forwarded a little bit because it's basically working on the same thing. Alright, so we have that is the finished piece. The wheels on here will spin. They're not too loose to cause much vibration or anything. Maybe want to tighten it up once you know, once it get going a little bit, but I want to make sure that these will spin. Okay, so here's another tricky step. We're supposed to take two M530 screws and attach the XYZ 3-limit switch directly to the board. The problem is that the M530 screws are pretty good sized screws, almost as big as the trip itself, and they don't fit through the holes here. I'm not quite sure if it's just mislabeled on the tutorial. Maybe I'm not missing screws and the screws are just not, they're labeled incorrectly or something. So I'm kind of hopeful, but at the same time worried. I don't want to use up the wrong pieces and then get to a point where I don't know what else to do. The other switches, the other switch thing here is the double switch, and those screw holes are the same size. So I think I'll move on to the next step and maybe skip this one, or maybe even try it with just different size screws.